It's time for a new episode of Sit Down with the Sup. In this episode, meet new Superintendent John Boyd, his path to Evergreen Public Schools, and his vision for student success. Plus, a Superintendent Q&A, questions from our students. And Kids Give Back, a fabulous Furcrest holiday tradition. And now your host, Craig Bernback, and Superintendent John Boyd.
Hello and welcome to Sit Down with the Sup. I'm Craig Bernback, the Communications Manager here at Evergreen Public Schools and your host for the show. And this is not only our first show of 2022, it's also our first show with Superintendent John Boyd, who just this week was formally named our new interim superintendent. Now, John Boyd's going to join us full-time sometime early next month, but he's with us today. So it's my pleasure to welcome him to Evergreen Public Schools.
Welcome to Evergreen, Mr. Boyd. Hola.
Welcome to Evergreen, Mr. Boyd.
Welcome to Evergreen, Mr. Boyd.
Welcome to Evergreen, Mr. Boyd.
And yes, welcome to Evergreen, Mr. Boyd. I hope you enjoyed some of our students getting to say hi.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate putting kids in the center of the conversation, and that's what I hope to do as superintendent here, is to really be focused on students, student voice. So I absolutely appreciate you putting the students front and center to give me that welcome. And I found people all over the district and in the community being so welcoming to me. So I really appreciate that.
Right, that's why we're here for the students, and we have some students here behind you. This is going to be our featured picture of the day, and this comes from Columbia Valley Elementary School, and that is librarian Beth Petrie, and yes, that is a dragon tail.
I was wondering what that was.
Well, that's because she was reading the book, The Library Dragon, and this is a tradition at Columbia Valley Elementary School. She's actually the second librarian to do this. That tail was left by the previous librarian, so it's an awesome tradition. And we're going to hear more from students in just a bit, but for now, John, you're stuck with me, and I will say, technically, your contract says interim superintendent, but you'll be the acting superintendent here, so just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to call you Superintendent Boyd, if that's okay.
That's fine with me, and yes, I do have the interim designation as superintendent here, and I do have an 18-month contract with the district, and so I'll be here this year and next year for sure, and then we'll see how it goes beyond that.
Awesome, great. And if you're okay with it, can I call you John?
Absolutely, please do. I prefer it.
Excellent, that'll make it simpler for me. And as I said, we're going to hear from students in a bit, but for now you're stuck with me asking questions.
Yep.
And the first question, I hope, is an easy one.
Okay.
When you saw that this opportunity was available, why were you excited about the job?
Well, it's a phenomenal district and a great community. My wife and I have our eyes set on coming to Vancouver eventually, and I had decided to finish my career in Quincy, and then we've started to look for homes that we could eventually transition to. And so when I was contacted related to this position, that immediately caught my eye, one, for the area, but also for just the great reputation that the Evergreen Schools has, the phenomenal programs and people. And I'll tell you what, everybody I've talked to inside and out of the community has said one thing absolutely every time: there are great people in the Evergreen School District. And so I found that to be true in my 1.5 days that I've been here so far. So yeah, it's just a phenomenal place, and I'm just truly excited to begin.
All right, now the tough question here. What do you think is the biggest challenge coming on, especially now you're coming on mid-school year in the middle of the pandemic, so I know there's a lot of challenges, but what's on the top of your list that you really know you need to tackle right off the bat?
Well, it's the pandemic. I mean, it's ramping up. Omicron has really taxed all of the school districts across the state, and Evergreen's no different. So, just working with the leaders and with the staff to keep our schools staffed, to make sure that we have bus drivers to support, to deliver kids. Simple things like getting tests so that we can continue athletics and continue the tests to get back into school, which is really critical when you're doing quarantining. So, the COVID response it has to be top priority for every superintendent across the state, and it's no different here. So absolutely is a top priority. Also, whenever you have a leadership transition in mid-year, it's tough for people, and so there's confusion, there's emotions that go around that. So building relationships and trust is probably right up there too with my top priorities. And so And then the board was really clear about continuing our equity inclusion work, and there's in the middle of a strategic planning process, and so to usher that along and support that work while managing a district and leading a district in the pandemic, those are the priorities I think for me right now.
And because of COVID, that's why we're masked up here trying to stay as safe as possible. Just to talk a little bit about yourself, you're coming from the Quincy School District.
Yep.
You've been there 7+ years, and now that district's a little bit different than Evergreen Public Schools. It's a smaller district. But what are some things that maybe that you've learned there or experienced at Quincy that you think might help you here at Evergreen Public Schools?
Yeah, just being a sitting superintendent in the state of Washington and doing all of the things related to that, board relations, working on strategic planning, doing all of the things that you do as a superintendent, sitting in the chair is a benefit. And so, additionally, I will say that as a smaller school superintendent, you wear a lot of hats. And, and having worn those hats and having sat in that chair doing those jobs, I think I have a deep understanding of what people across the organization have to do and need to do. And I'm empathetic to the challenges of all of those things. So I think that'll go a long way towards me being able to lead others doing those same jobs and those same roles.
You talk about wearing many hats, and while you've been a superintendent for 7+ years, and I'm not saying you're old here, John, but
it's okay. I'm happy. I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. You got a little gray, but as I like to say, better gray than gone. So you got me there. But you have worn many hats in the educational world. Everything from a teacher to a superintendent and a principal. Yeah. How do you think those experiences kind of built you up as an educational leader? Yeah, I've been a paraeducator.
I've been a substitute paraeducator. I've been a teacher, a principal, and an executive director in two of the largest systems in the state of Washington, and then superintendent. So, again, when you've done those jobs and you've experienced them, I think it's a lot easier to help lead people to make those jobs work for students. And so that experience will help me to be empathetic, to help support and guide and lead. And so, all of those pieces have really formed who I am and as a person. And I always remember that first day as a substitute secretary in a building, and how tough that was, how hard that job was. And so I think sometimes you don't, if you haven't experienced that, you don't recognize the challenges, the difficulty, and the amazing work that people do all up and down the system. So for me, it's an advantage, I think, to know and have sat in those chairs and done those roles so that I can be supportive and helpful to those in those positions.
And you talk about that we talked that you're at Quincy now, but you mentioned some other areas. You grew up in the Seattle area, and then you actually were a principal at the high school you attended, right?
Yes, I got a call from the superintendent. I was principal at the Bilingual Orientation Center. It's a center for refugee and immigrant students, and I love the place. It was like a mini United Nations. I was using my Spanish and meeting people from different cultures. The superintendent called me twice, and on the third time I had to accept. He said, I want you to go to Chief Sealth High School, and I told him I can't go back to my high school. There's some of the teachers were my teachers there, so it was a strange circumstance. It worked out being just an absolute blessing and a phenomenal situation for me and an opportunity as well. So, and my son actually was a student there, so I was really hard on him, but I would call on the intercom and his buddies would say, "Hey, isn't that your dad? Hey, isn't that your dad?" He was so delighted when I left to go to Highline for the other position that I had as an executive director.
That's great. You have the same alma mater. That's very cool.
Yeah.
We both graduated from there. And I have to say, I'm a sports guy, sports nut. So when I saw that you played basketball at the University of Montana, quickly looked it up. And I will say, after having a really great high school career, you went on and you were a starter your senior year. You played with an NBA player, Larry Kostoyak, who I watched for many years. And also Wayne Tinkle was a teammate, who's the head coach at Oregon State now. That had to be a fun experience. You take some of those experiences as an athlete. Do they help you now in your position as a superintendent?
Oh, I think absolutely. We're playing at that level with those phenomenal teachers. I've had some phenomenal players. You mentioned Larry and Wayne. They're two of my best and closest friends, and the relationships that you take away from those are just unbelievable. I mean, we had 8,000 screaming fans every game at Montana, and so just the experience of being in that setting, but being on a team, and being around some incredible coaches. Mike Montgomery was my coach. Stu Morrill, who was at Utah State for many years, and so just you're around people that are great leaders, great motivators that inspire you to higher levels, and so I think that athletic piece really has shaped who I am, and it's been important for me in terms of being the leader that I am.
And we've got some great student athletes in this district, so I know you're going to
I can't wait to get out to see a game. I was going to go to the game last night at Mountain View, and they ended up canceling it for COVID. It was unfortunate because I was really looking forward to seeing the students play, and I've refereed, so in the Pacific Northwest Basketball Association too for a couple of years, so I'm really passionate about sports in general, but especially basketball. It's really shaped who I am.
Awesome. Thank you for answering those questions for me. But now things get a little harder.
Okay.
Because now we're going to go and get some questions from students. It is time for our student Q&A.
Right on.
Hello, my name is Amaria Willard, and I'm a senior here at Henrietta Lacks High School. And my question for the superintendent is, what are your plans to increase equity in our schools so that our staff more accurately represent our student body?
Yeah, that's a good question. And in the role that I've been in, all throughout my career, I've been an equity leader, and I consider myself an equity leader. Her question was specifically related to staffing that reflects the demographics of the students. And in my soon-to-be former job in Quincy, we've gone from 3% of our staff that were bilingual, biliterate, to about 25 to 30%. And this district, I'm happy to say too, is engaging a lot of the things that we did there to help increase the numbers of teachers and staff members that reflect the population and speak the languages and so forth. I think that's absolutely mission critical for us. So I'll do everything I can to support and push in with those folks that are already doing the work to pathways for paraeducators, for example, and different ways to engage staff members to try to get them certification, recruitment efforts, even going as far as looking at some programs in the schools, in the high schools, that could be career and technical education on an educational pathway. I've worked with the state legislature to help develop a bilingual educator initiative in the state of Washington. We piloted it in my former district, and so it's a program where students go through, they're picked for their ability to speak the language, and then they go out to college, and then now we're working on tuition reimbursement for them to be able to be forgiven for their loans if they come back to the community and work. So things like that really will go a long ways to getting our staff and staff balance that reflects the demographics of our students.
Thank you for that. Now
You're
we're going
welcome.
to go back to Henrietta Lacks for a different kind of question.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Bailey Cunningham, and I'm a senior at Henrietta Lacks Health and Bioscience High School. My question for the superintendent is, how do you plan to address the climate crisis, and what are your plans to make Evergreen School District more environmentally friendly?
Yeah, so great question. I appreciate that. It's on everybody's mind, including mine. I have, my daughter is at Western Washington University. She's doing an environmental sciences degree, and she's studying kelp and the effects of pollution and climate change on kelp. My son is in an environmental science program at the University of Santa Barbara, policy. So our families really, it's really something that we have a lot of family conversations. So I think part of it for everybody, and including me, is being a leader and modeling the things that we need to do to keep our planet safe. But in the school system, there are a lot of things that we can do to mitigate the effects of carbon in the atmosphere and reduce and do our part locally. And we have a big transportation fleet of diesel buses, and over time, I think the trend is going to be to get those to be electric. We don't have the infrastructure. The buses are too much right now, but if we can push forward a little faster, a little further in that, quicker, I think that'll go a long way. One of the things this district's done that's really incredible is all all the new schools that you have. You have ways of harvesting light. So those really annoying lights that come on in the high school and go off, they actually serve a function to preserve energy. And energy maybe comes from hydroelectric dams here, but if that energy can be used elsewhere, they don't have to have coal-fired plants, for example. So that's something that we can do and have done, and I think that's something the district should be really proud of, is new heating and cooling systems, buildings that hold in energy and that harvest light and do all those things. So I think there's opportunity probably, and again, I haven't been in the school, so I don't know what your recycling programs are. I don't know how the food service works, but there's a lot of carbon that's produced by food and food transportation and all of the disposable things that go along with that. So can we take a look at that and see if there's something that we can do along those lines? And, also the education of our students and what we do in our curriculum in science and building awareness and empowering students to be able to be activists in their community too. So lots of ways to approach that. Something that is really near and dear to my heart, and it's my kids just hammer me with it, and I've become a better person because of it, and I appreciate the fact that younger people are really concerned and they really want to make a difference, and it's my job and our job to support them to do that.
Excellent. All right, now we're going to go down to the middle school level and hear from a couple of students from Frontier Middle School.
Hi, my name is Emily Cortez.
And I'm Camila Herrera, and we're 8th graders at Frontier Middle School.
What are your thoughts on equity versus equality, and how does this relate to Evergreen School District?
Yeah, so for me, equality means everything's equal. So everybody, the discipline policy is the same for everybody. Everybody has the right for free speech. So that's equality. Everybody gets the same thing in the same way, and it's equity means that everybody gets their individual needs met. So in my belief is that if we have groups, our LGBTQT, if we have our second language learners, our students below the poverty line, our students of color, if they're achieving success at lower levels, then we've got an equity gap. And so I think part of the thing that we have to do is to look at what those gaps are and not just admire and study, but actually take action with those, and speak with our deeds and not just our words. So your equity, if you have a good equity program, then your how you identify your gender, how you whether or not you're a second language learner, you live below the poverty line, or if you're a student of color, it doesn't predict your success. And so that would be the goal, to develop, and the district's done some incredible work in equity here, and I hope to come alongside with the equity folks and really provide some support and leadership around it and learn with them, because part of it is everybody, each individual learning and becoming a better person with respect to equity and inclusion.
Excellent, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
You mentioned you are bilingual, you speak Spanish.
Yeah.
So we went to Burton Elementary School, and a student's got a question that you can hopefully answer for us in 2 languages.
My Spanish test.
Yeah,
okay, here we go.
Hola, soy Giovanni. ¿Y usted cuántos años ha estado hablando español?
Bueno, sí, hablo español. Empecé a estudiar español en high school, en las escuelas secundarias de Seattle, y continué en la universidad. Recibí mi licencia o bachelor's degree en español de la Universidad de Montana, y también aprendí mucho como en mi profesión, como asistente bilingüe, como maestro, director, y como superintendente, hablando y platicando con personas en español. So, sí, hace mucho tiempo, 30 años de aprender el español, y yeah.
All right, and briefly in English, he asked you how many years you've been speaking Spanish?
I can't remember all the gibberish here I said, but yeah, I just said that I started learning started learning Spanish in high school, continued in the university. I received my bachelor's degree in Spanish from the University of Montana. And then I continued to learn and grow and get better in my Spanish just in my profession, in my occupation as a bilingual assistant, as a teacher, as a director. And I actually was a director of a bilingual orientation center, and I probably spoke more Spanish at that time. A little rusty now, but we'll get back to it. And then as a superintendent in all the work that I've done, and it's been a great boost to my career, but also a great boost to my ability to be able to connect with people who speak Spanish.
Awesome. Well, thank you for answering the questions. And part of the show, we always like to feature some great things that are going on in our district. And for that, we're going to go to Fircrest Elementary School, where for more than a decade, they've had a tradition that really helps out their school community.
Cranberry sauce, and you'll see other mashed potatoes like that.
This organized chaos is a Fircrest Elementary School holiday tradition.
It is one of our favorite all-school Fircrest traditions.
For about the last 15 years, students, staff, and community partners have been donating food and supplies for families to use over the winter break. And as you can see, they donate a lot.
Honestly, my favorite part is just walking around the library and putting up the cans and then seeing all of the cans and realizing it's one school, about 6 grades, and we've got mountains.
Probably between 5,000 and 6,000 items. Do you know where they go?
No.
These 5,000 to 6,000 items will be sorted into boxes for about 50 to 55 families. And all these families are Fircrest families.
When we're collecting food and giving it directly back out to the families right here, and we know we're giving them what they need the most, it is very near and dear to my heart. And there will be tears on Thursday as I give them away.
The kids don't just donate, they do a lot of the work.
We go into classrooms and then we collect all the cans, and then when we're all done, we put them out.
Part of the tradition is that the 5th graders do a lot of the heavy lifting.
I remember watching the big kids walking around, and ever since then I also wanted to do it.
Yes, the kids love doing something different, but they also learn how powerful giving back can be.
Seeing the other kids get excited about the foods that's there and say, oh, I like that, oh, I love that, and then they know that it's going home to another child. And it's not, I like that, I want to take it. It's, I like that, I'm excited someone gets it.
There is a penguin-themed bulletin board to keep track of which class donates the most. But in the end, this isn't about individual teams. It's about one big, caring Fircrest family.
I don't really care if we win or not. I just want to help.
And John, I got to tell you, watching those 5th graders run around, that chaos and that excitement, it just touched my heart.
Yeah, what a wonderful thing for those students to be able to do and do some acting on helping in the community, and just, you could, even though they had masks on, you could just see how they were beaming under their masks and how important what that was to them to be able to give back, and I can't think of a better thing for students to be able to do to serve their community. So that's a really beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it.
No problem. We'll be sharing more with you, and we want people out there to continue to share with us and see what's going on in the district. Please follow us on social media. Here's where you can find us.
On Facebook, you'll find us at facebook.com/evergreenps. On Instagram, it's evergreen_public_schools. On Twitter, follow us at twitter.com/evergreenps. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/evergreen school district. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. And on LinkedIn, you'll find us at linkedin.com/school/evergreenps.